So this is a children's book called Fairy and Folk Tales that um, my mother got me, I guess, when I was a child, and read me these stories when I was a child. And you can see this is for me in December of 1988. I was 7 years old. I want to start reading these books to my grandchildren and making a documentary of them on YouTube. I imagine that they're probably already on there. YouTube has everything, but I wanted to leave a legacy and something for my grandchildren to read and hear my voice over the years and maybe pass on. So I'm going to start and make, basically this is the title video. I'll read the inside cover and the introduction, and then I'll stop this video and I will start with the first tale of the story and read them to start the catalog. So, the cover page. Many different characters come to life inside this beautifully illustrated book. Handsome princes, fearsome monsters, wise old women, wicked demons, and lovely princesses. The author, James Riordan, has traveled throughout the world collecting folk and fairy tales and fairy stories, and his powerful retellings of traditional tales have attracted considerable critical acclaim. Alongside perennial favorites like Beauty and the Beast, Pinocchio, The Little Match Girl, Rapunzel, and Tom Thumb, the reader will find some less well-known but equally spellbinding stories. Kwaku, Adonus and the Python, The Rainbow and the Breadfruit Flower, The Black Bull of Norway, and The Flying Cherry Tree. In all, over 50 stories are included from places as far apart as Australia and Finland, India, Mexico, and Scotland and North America. To complement the author's unique gift for storytelling, 19 outstanding artists, including Victor Ambros, Carol Baker, Shirley Tourette, Robin Larry, and Marilyn Day, have been chosen to illustrate the tales. They have produced a stunning selection of imaginative color and illustrations, ensuring this superb book will be treasured by children everywhere. Here are the information for the book. Here's the table of contents. And here's the introduction. It's kind of difficult holding my phone and trying to read this, so I don't know if it's really going to work word for word. I guess I'll try to follow my hand here. So the introduction goes as such. I once met a man up in the Arctic who told me what folk tales meant to him. There we were, some half a dozen grown people, squatting in the half-dark of a walrus tent, washing down the whale's innards with some potent brew, and swapping folk yarns. This man, a wizened, old nut-brown barrel of a fellow, was saying that when he was a lad, no one for hundreds of miles could read or write. There were no schools, no radio or television, no paper or books, no churches or clubs, but there were folk tales. When the young people came home to their snug tents from a tough day on the ice, they enjoyed the happiest times of their short lives, the treasured hour of storytelling. Old Gran or Granddad would sit closer to the fire, pull a dogskin rug round them, and begin a story, the old man told me. And those tales taught me to understand life, to be brave and to fight evil. They lifted the tent flap onto a brighter morrow, free from want and sorrow. And now, when I recall my cold and hungry childhood, I wonder what life would have been without those wonderful stories so full of hope. I've never forgotten those words. They opened my eyes to the meaning of folk tales in the lives of the whole community not so long ago. How lucky we are to have enough to eat, to be warm or cool as fancy takes us, to have plenty of free time and a choice of many activities to fill it. How lucky we are just to be alive, to live well past 10 and 20 years, even as long as 60 and 70 years, to read tales from around the world in our own language. Down the ages, no one thought to write down the folk or people's tale. Since the people could not write, they committed the stories to memory and retold them in their own words, embroidering here, unstitching there, as their needs and dreams and fantasy prompted. Gifted storytellers, minstrels, bards, spalpeens, told or sang the tales to audiences who took an active part in their performance. Like folk song and dance, it was a collective and constantly changing experience. No telling was ever the same. So folk tales evolved down the centuries with age-old popular themes and versions adapted to reflect, like a mirror, the conditions of the time, and they were intended for the entire community, not solely for children. It was only relatively recent that 300 years ago that folk tales were put down on paper by educated men and women who turned them into fairy tales. The best known collections in Europe are by the Frenchman Charles Perrault, 1628 to 1703, who gave us Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, Tom Thumb, and so on. The German brothers Japing and Wilhelm Grimm, 1785 to 1863 and 1786 to 1859, who wrote down the versions of Snow White, Rapunzel, Rumpelstiltskin, and the Golden Goose. The Golden Goose. And the Dane Hans Christian Andersen, 1805 to 1875, who wrote The Little Mermaid, The Ugly Duckling, and The Tinder Box. Such writers took the people's tale and often carved beautiful structures out of it, but they also molded it into their own ideas of good and evil, right and wrong. Christian ideas, for example, only came into fairy tales through the pens of those who set them down. Folk tales were pagan, and again the robust peasant lass and village sage were put firmly in place by the male storytellers. She became pretty if meek, hideous if enterprising, and naughty little stupid. As a result, fairy tales abound with ugly witches and stepmothers, yet few evil wizards and stepfathers. In selecting the folk and fairy tales for our book, I have been guided by the wish to entertain and introduce you to cultures other than your own. To present before you a banquet of the world's good stories that may be read by all children, brown and pink, girl and boy, rich and poor, at the expense of none. We live in a remarkable age of television and space flights, tower blocks and instant foods. There are some today who curl a lip at the folk and fairy tales of days gone by. But these tales are part of our cultural heritage and so part of the history and literature we ought to know. The beloved tales of old may not be true, but they are not harmful or idle chatter. They have good reason for being in the world and for lasting. So, good souls, as the great Irish poet and storyteller W.B. Yeats once put it, let's go forth and tell her of tales. Let's go forth, the teller of tales, and seize whatever prey the heart longs for, and have no fear. Everything exists, everything is true, and the earth is only a little dust under our feet. So that is the introduction into this book, and I apologize. I don't read out loud that often. I have to really slow down myself. My words can't keep up with my my brain's reading, but I'll do my best to slow down and not have to stop and repeat and mispronounce words. And hopefully, like I said, this is for my grandchildren. I don't know how to turn this camera around, I guess. This is for my grandchildren. And, I hope other people followed as well. These are really great stories.